From South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lede. I'm your host, Gavin Jackson, and this episode was recorded on May 2nd, 2025, from South Carolina Public Radio studios here in Columbia. May the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and all the other days be with you. Amen. On this episode of The Lede, we near the final week of the legislative session, and so we look at what lawmakers accomplished this week, including two major education bills that got sent to the governor. Also, House Freedom Caucus Chairman Representative John McCravy is in hot water for past antisemitic and homophobic comments. Vice President JD Vance visited Nucor Steel in Berkeley, marking the first 100 days of the Trump administration and to celebrate domestic manufacturing. We hear from Winthrop University political science professor Scott Huffman about those first 100 days and what his latest poll found among South Carolinians like you and me. And if you've been listening, you know I've been asking you this before, and I'm going to ask you again, but I'm imploring you to help us with our project called Voices Collected. It's our way of remembering the Emanuel 9 who we lost 10 years ago this June, but their legacy still lives on and shapes who we are. That's why we want to hear your voice, your memory, and your experience because it matters. You can share that with us at scetv.org/Emanuel9 and help us honor the past while building a stronger, more connected South Carolina. Speaking of connecting, connect with the Lede in the wind down section, and you can do that by calling 803-563-7169. I'm told we have a voicemail. In fact, we have two. Could that be you? Could be you if you want to. 803-563-7169. Call us. Let us know what's on your mind. May the 4th be with you. We're going to lead off the politics section with quite the story of internal fighting among State House Republicans, which came to light and on the record this past week. The Post and Courier was out with a story Thursday evening, and it reported that House Majority Leader Davey Hyatt told reporters on May 1st that he renounced his membership in the Family Caucus, citing philosophical and character differences with its current chairman and fellow co-founder, Republican Representative John McCravy. Post and Courier continues by saying that Hyatt told reporters that he could no longer work with McCravy following an onslaught of mailers accusing him of blocking an abortion bill favored by a group McCravy has been aligned with, Students for Life, which is an anti-abortion organization. Now, you may remember, this is me reminding you, not in the story, but you may remember the same situation faced House Judiciary Committee Chairman Weston Newton earlier this session, with not just mailers, but people showing up at his house and at his church speaking against him, calling him pro-abortion, which he's definitely not. Now back to the story. Hyatt said McCravy had accused Newton of being too, quote, woke to lead the committee because he had named a, quote, gay and a, quote, Jew in reference to former Greenville Republican Representative Jason Elliott, the first openly gay Republican legislator in state history, and Representative Beth Bernstein, who is a Democrat from Columbia who was Jewish. And both of them were leading subcommittees. Now, both blasted McCravy's comments while he denied ever making them. So that's where we are, but this story's not ending here. Expect some fireworks next week. That's what I've been told. I'm sure tensions will be only going up. Speaking of the family unit, on Wednesday, the House gave third reading to the Paid Parental Leave Bill H. 3645, which, like a previous version the House has sent to the Senate, would provide 12 weeks of paid parental leave for state employees who give birth to a child and 4 weeks to the support parent. This would be double what's currently on the books and would go for foster parents and adoptive parents as well. But it was not without controversy on Wednesday when it received its third reading vote before heading to the Senate. Here's Campbell Republican Josiah Magnuson, who is part of the far-right House Freedom Caucus and a member of the Family Caucus.
Fiscal conservatives will want to listen to this because your people are going to be asking you, why did you vote to raise our taxes? And that is something that Representative Gilda Cobb-Hunter admitted to me. If you remember yesterday, I asked and explained that my school district has said they will have to raise their millage if this passes. That is the case. I mean, that is what is going to happen. You're voting to give more benefits to people who already have benefits if they have a government job. So what you're doing is you're voting, if you vote for this bill, you're voting to take more money away from people who don't have benefits and give it to people who already do have benefits. You're saying let's tax the people of South Carolina, most of whom don't get paid parental leave, and give them to state employees who already have 6 weeks of paid parental leave. So that's what you're voting for. You're voting to, in effect, take from the poor to give to the rich. And then thirdly, this is something I think you'll be very concerned about. As I was going back through this bill last night, I noticed that the language does not mention mothers and fathers. It says state employees who give birth and state employees who do not give birth. Now, I don't know about you, but I believe that our government should acknowledge mothers and should acknowledge fathers. And to push this liberal bill through without vetting it, to me, is unacceptable. I want to make sure we know exactly what we're voting upon, that we're voting to put something in law that is disrespectful to, if you're a husband, to our wives and mothers. If you're a wife, it's disrespectful to your husband, to the father of your children, to say that he's just the husband of somebody who gave birth.
West Columbia Republican Representative Micah Caskey, who is a proud papa of his 11-week-old son Mikey, had a much different view on the bill.
It's been the biggest blessing in my life, and this morning, as I was about to leave for work, he had woken up, and I went in, and he wanted to talk, and he would do, ooh, and he does like a little bubbly thing. But you can see him working to try and form words so early, just to master his sound. It's the most amazing thing I've ever been a part of. And all of that made more sense than what I just heard from the well. The suggestion that this state should not engage in things that promote family development, the suggestion that the state is somehow economically unable to support the people who serve in public office, in public positions, by affording them a chance to be with their family, is beyond the pale.
Substantial research shows the benefit of parents bonding with their children at such critical early ages, as well as foster and adoptive parents who face different and important challenges as well in those early days with their children. Now, Columbia Democratic Representative Beth Bernstein, who was the lead sponsor of the bill and who is not prone to taking the well, was incensed, to say the least.
You voted for this, Mr. Magnuson. When this came to the House, overwhelmingly, it passed 104 yeas to 4 nays. So I'm not sure what has changed from your mindset and your perspective at that time to today. This House overwhelmingly passed it. The Senate took it down to 6 weeks. We went from 0 weeks of paid parental leave for our state employees to 6. The House wanted it to 12. The Senate took 6 weeks away. This is known. This legislation helps the family bonding. You already heard what Representative Caskey said. I'm a parent, whether or not I'm the birthing parent or not. The bond that you have with your child, particularly at birth, is something that is special and something that should be preserved. For those of you in this chamber who talk about family and family preservation and the family bonding and vote against this bill, that does not make sense. We have a family caucus here, and a lot of the family caucus members voted against this. I think Mr. Magnuson standing up here today is trying to save face for voting against a bill that he voted for in 2021 and 2022. We're not trying to mislead. I have never stood up here and tried to mislead or misrepresent anything that we do up here. We are working for our constituents, whether they're Republican, Democrat, or independent. So when you call something liberal or conservative, you're putting labels on something. You're making this chamber divisive. You're making it where we don't want to work together. I'm not that way. You have to compromise in life. Give and take. Don't put these labels of liberal and conservative. This is to help families, help mothers and fathers bond with their child. And as a state, we should be supporting that. This is only for state employees. Hopefully, this will make us more competitive in the private sector. These were the things that were discussed when we debated and vetted this at length previously.
Now, the bill picked up more votes on its Wednesday third reading compared to Tuesday, going from an 80 to 31 second reading vote to 86 to 18 vote. So more people jumping on and fewer people opposing it. The bill now heads to the Senate. Two major education bills are headed to the governor's desk and notch major victories for Beaufort Republican Representative Shannon Erickson, who chairs the House Education and Public Works Committee. The first is the Educator Assistance Act, which is a bill she has been pushing for her entire 18-year legislative career. The bill would provide teachers with clear and detailed contracts that include salary and assignments. It would also fine a board of trustees that fails to approve teacher contracts in a timely manner, and allows teachers to have permanent certification if they complete annual professional development. Here's Erickson.
Don't give them something and say you did.
So you think that's like the biggest thing in this bill for you? I mean, is that contract aspect of it?
The contract, that's that and the certification being a permanent scenario whereby their PhD just keeps it renewed if they follow that, just like any other profession.
Okay.
Those are the two biggest signs of respect for teachers, in my opinion. You've said, we treat you as professional, we trust what you're doing, you're going to keep your certification, and if you don't do these things like every other profession, then you know you're going to lose it. And, oh, by the way, we're going to give you a contract, and you're going to know where you're going to work and what you're going to make and what you're going to teach. The Senate did add I called it a cheat sheet. They're going to have to show their math. How did they come up with the salary levels that they're offering people? And they can give a range of salary. They don't have to be exact on what it is, because if you're in one place, you might be one, and if it's another. But at least show the math of, you know, regular classroom teacher, special ed add-on, grade level head, because if you're head of all the third grade teachers, you got a little bit of extra pay, and you coordinate their training, that kind of stuff. So I think that's not a bad thing to add, so that teachers actually can see how they've determined what their pay stacks up to be.
And at the end of the day, you think this would help to keep teachers? It's
part of our retention and recruitment tool. I mean, how many people?
Money, right? Yeah,
no, it's not money. It's respect. Truly, honestly, it's about respect.
The bill, with the governor's expected signature, would take effect in fall 2026. On Thursday, another major education win for Republicans. It came with the passage of the K-12 School Voucher Bill, S-62. You will remember last fall when the state Supreme Court ruled that a similar program violated the state constitution's prohibition of spending public tax dollars for the, quote, direct benefit, quote, of private institutions. That prompted the Senate to come out of the gate swinging with its bill in January. Now, this compromise bill includes a third-party trustee appointed by the Superintendent of Education that would run the program. This is seen as a workaround of the High Court's 2024 ruling. The original bill was funded by using educational lottery dollars. That was, again, another way lawmakers sought to get around the Supreme Court ruling. This new version allows lawmakers to decide how the program will get funded every year. And this bill will allow up to 15,000 K-12 students in South Carolina to receive $7,500 scholarships next year for private school tuition. We'll likely see you in court. And the governor signed into law the Health Agency Restructuring Bill S-2. This consolidates three health agencies: the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Services, and the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs into the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. The move puts all three agencies under the same roof and a soon-to-be nominated director, whom the governor will appoint and the Senate will confirm. Let's take a road trip on down Interstate 26 to Berkeley County, where Vice President JD Vance was at Nucor Steel Berkeley as part of his first visit to the state as vice president. It was also his first visit to a steel mill, something he said was surprising even to himself since he grew up in blue-collar Appalachia, where his grandfather proudly worked at Arco Steel. The trip came right around the time of the Trump administration's first 100 days in office and what Vance called a manufacturing renaissance.
100 days under Donald Trump's leadership marks the beginning of the industrial renaissance in the United States of America. I believe that a golden age of American manufacturing started 100 days ago, and we're building it right here at Nucor Steel in South Carolina. And I want to celebrate everybody here. I want to celebrate the work you do. I want to celebrate the investments this business has made in the United States of America. I want to celebrate the incredible things you build for the United States.
Now, a little update here on some data. American manufacturing is currently contracting. Reuters reported that the Institute for Supply Management said its manufacturing PMI dropped to a 5-month low of 48.7 last month from 49 in March. Now, a PMI reading below 50 indicates contraction in the manufacturing sector, which accounts for about 10% of the economy. This visit by Vance also comes as tariffs on steel and aluminum were lessened for automotive manufacturers earlier this week. Reuters reported that autos and parts subject to tariffs would no longer be subject to Trump's other tariffs, including 25% duties on Canadian and Mexican goods, 25% levies on steel and aluminum, as well as 10% duties applied to most other countries. The Wall Street Journal reported that Nucor executives said this week that steel demand is not weakening, even after some customers moved up their purchases to avoid the expanded 25% tariff on steel that started in March. Nucor, the largest steel maker by sales in the United States, said its order backlog in its steel business is 25% higher than last year at the same time. Here's Vance again on Thursday.
Now, they attack us when we implement trade policies that do a very simple thing, rebalance trade in favor of American workers and American businesses instead of foreign workers and foreign corporations. I've talked to people here today who talk about expanding facilities, building new steelmaking facilities because of the trade policies that Donald J. Trump has implemented. And I'll ask all of you, the workers and the corporate leadership assembled here today, a very simple question. Do you want to ship American jobs off to the People's Republic of China? No. Do you want to rely on foreign corporations to make the things that you need in your homes and your families need every single day? So why don't we rebuild America's middle class? Why don't we rebuild American manufacturing? And why don't we rebuild American industry just like you're doing right here? And isn't it nice to have an administration that supports you for a change?
While the talk was optimistic and Nucor leaders are as well, a competitor, Cleveland Cliffs, recently laid off more than 1,200 steelworkers in Michigan and Minnesota, according to ManufacturingDrive.com. Now, you heard Vance mention the first 100 days of Trump's second presidency, and I know you've probably heard more than enough of that this week from other media sources, so we're not going to rehash it here, but I will bring in Scott Huffman, a political science professor from Winthrop University, who spoke with me on This Week in South Carolina about his new general population poll from April and its findings, including the 44% of South Carolinians who express very or somewhat positive feelings toward the president, and 43% who have very or somewhat negative feelings toward Trump, and whether those numbers should be higher at such an early part of his presidency. Here's Scott.
Usually it is. Usually for presidents, early in their presidency, they get a honeymoon period. A second-term president usually doesn't get as high of a honeymoon period in their approval ratings. Certainly since we've had polling, we haven't had a president who's had split 2 terms like Trump has. But, Trump came in as a known entity, and the people who were anti-Trump were strongly anti-Trump. The people who were pro-Trump strongly so as well. The interesting thing about South Carolina, again, we poll the general population, not just registered voters and certainly not likely voters for any election a year and a half away. Mm-hmm. But that means we have a significant percentage of people with no opinion. So if you look at national polls, you'll see disapproval ratings of around 53%. And disapproval rating in South Carolina is, about 9 points lower than that. So Trump's doing pretty well in South Carolina. If you look at only people who have an opinion, nationally, he's at best at 40%. In South Carolina, he's pushing 50% with that. So again, in red South Carolina, he's doing well. But hardcore Republicans in South Carolina, forget there's a whole lot of Democrats here as well, which contributes to that split opinion.
We're about 13 months away from the June primaries here in South Carolina, so it's still so early. But should any of this be a concern for the base when you look at not just your poll, but we look at some of these national polls that showed Trump kind of towards the bottom of the barrel when it comes to his predecessors and approval ratings at this stage? Should that be, a warning sign to some folks who are up for re-election next year who are tied so closely to him?
Well, to the degree that they're tied to Trump and the independent voters, even independent voters who lean Republican, to the degree they start feeling the economic impacts of some of Trump's policies, that could lead them to take it out, quote unquote, on Trump in the midterm elections and would put them at risk. Now, none of the congressional districts in South Carolina are really in danger of flipping from one party to the other. They're pretty heavily gerrymandered at this point. But nationally, you could actually see the House flip, the Senate come close to flipping if Trump's policies really hit the pocketbooks of the average voter. Now, his hardcore voters will tolerate some economic pain because they really voted for Trump more for ideological reasons, more for symbolic reasons, and he is carrying out the policies they wanted him to carry out. But to the more moderate voter, they're going to be a little upset if Trump's policies hurt them in the pocketbook, and they may take it out in the midterm elections in 2026.
You polled the popularity of the governor and senators Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott. All three have lower overall approval ratings than Trump, and that includes among Republicans, despite being so closely aligned to him. Is there any reasoning behind that? Is it just because there are little deviations between them and Trump, and folks are more drawn toward the president than perhaps you could call Lindsey Graham or the governor or Rhino or Tim Scott not as closely aligned with the president? What do you make up for the difference there between those popularity ratings?
Well, generally it comes from more people having no opinion. The 10-point difference among Republicans between Donald Trump and Governor McMaster, if you look at only the approval ratings, it seems that Trump's much higher, but the disapproval ratings are lower, and the difference is really among people who have no opinion. Now, people who watch in this show, people who pay attention to politics, of course, have an opinion on the governor. They know what the governor is doing, but your day-to-day person who the only news they might get would be national cable news, honestly don't know what the governor is doing day to day. They're not familiar with what a senator does day to day unless that senator makes the national news like Lindsey Graham does. Now, Lindsey Graham's popularity among Republicans is notably lower than that of Tim Scott and Governor Henry McMaster. However, he's still above water with Republicans. But the fact that he's lower might attract a primary challenge. But he's got a huge war chest. He's still above water with Republicans. And so there's going to be a lot of calculations going on as whether he may be vulnerable in a primary or not.
You also polled on several transgender questions, such as requiring that transgender athletes compete on teams that match the sex they were assigned at birth, not the gender they identify with. 71% are in favor or strongly favoring laws or policies that would enforce that. This ticked up 9% from when you asked a similar question in the spring of 2023. So what does that increase tell you after that time has passed, despite a law addressing this in our state for an incredibly small minority of cases? Is this issue of transgender issues and rights and access becoming just more fervent in some ways?
It's becoming more of a wedge issue. The number of people who are transgender are a fraction of a fraction, far less than even 1% of the population. According to some estimates, 0.6%. This is not something that needs to be addressed by real policy in most people's minds if they looked at those numbers, but it is a strong ideological wedge issue. Now, the majority of respondents do not want overt discrimination against transgender individuals, saying they can't go into restaurants or they can't rent an apartment. But when it comes to doctors' offices, bathrooms, locker rooms. They do not want transgender individuals in those spaces. Why is it more prevalent now? Well, the politicians have made it more prevalent. Again, this has become an ideological symbol. It is signaling to your tribe as to how you feel ideologically about this issue. And it is something that Republicans have strongly brought forward, and that makes it in the forefront of people's minds. We even, our Congresswoman from South Carolina in the 1st District, Nancy Mace, has made this her recent hallmark of issues that she's speaking about because she knows her base is very much concerned about this issue.
That was Scott Huffman, a political science professor from Winthrop University and author of the Winthrop Poll, speaking with me on This Week in South Carolina, which you can find on youtube.com/South Carolina ETV or Friday nights at 7:30 on ETV channels statewide. Welcome to the wind down section, our little break from the news. We're glad you're here, along with A.T. Shire, lead podcast producer. Hello.
Hello,
AT.
Gavin. Oh, amazing.
May the 4th be with you.
May the 2nd be with you. We got a month of this, folks, okay? So just strap in, because it's dumb. We know it's dumb. That's why we do it.
Don't act like you guys think it's cool.
We do it so you can hear how dumb it is, okay? Gavin, you know what our listeners do to let us know that we aren't dumb? They call in. We love them for it. Mm-hmm. We love them, don't we, folks? So, Gavin, we're going to double dip, okay? Ooh. I've made the executive decision as keeper of the scrolls and the voicemail, which I do not discern. They're equal in my eyes. That we're going to double dip, okay?
The runes?
The runes. There are a lot of runes on the scrolls.
We must read them with the glasses.
They are runic, yes. Yeah.
I see here it states.
You do need late 80s blue and red 3D glasses to see the runes. That is correct. That's just foresight by the rune.
You got to get close to it and then unfocus your eyes and move away from it.
Like a magic eye.
Which I never could see.
I've never seen one in my life.
Really?
Yeah, ever.
I feel like you'd be able to see it.
I can't. I've never been able to.
I bet you it's my colorblind. Maybe you're colorblind.
I'm not. I sent you that new color that they said is new, and it's just
and your vision's insane, so you should be able to see it. Maybe it's too good.
I think so, yeah. If you're sub 2020, I'm 2013, which is BS. I wanted glasses. Anyway, Gavin, this is neither here nor there. You're distracting me. Stop bringing up something
what's in the runes.
He's going to bring up Lord of the Rings in a second. Okay, before he does that,
Middle Earth is...
Speak, friend, and enter, my friend. Okay, let's get to the call. Okay, number 1.
Hey, Gavin and AT. This is David. I'm up in Clemson, live in Anderson, teach at Clemson University. It's finals week. We're having a great time here right now. Best time of the year. When summer's coming, we'll do some research and a little worried about federal dollars right now. Have some projects that might get cut here, hoping that doesn't come to fruition. But Clemson baseball team is doing great. Yeah, those are some of the things we're thinking about up here in Clemson. Appreciate all you guys are doing. Thanks for keeping us in the loop with the State House and everything else you all talk about. And we'll catch you later.
David from Clemson, thank you for calling. Happy finals week. I know you're having a great time, but I'm sure the students are going a little crazy.
They're grinding. Their grind sets out of
finals week. I'm
glad you're bringing this up,
a
Gavin.
Different time.
Yeah, David, thank you for calling.
That's where the PTSD comes from.
Thank you for mentioning finals week. Gavin, did you ever pull like an all-nighter?
Oh my God!
Cram?
Yes. I only crammed.
You seem like
kidding me? Listen, I want to go ahead and say, I'm very deadline driven.
Yeah.
Didn't miss any. No,
I made all of them, but I
did it all.
I never studied for any of them.
Well, you're just natural ability for that. You can just you're much smarter than I am, but like
don't think so.
Well, what you got on your SATs? Exactly. I don't even want to know.
It's actually pretty good. I did pretty good.
Did I tell you that when I was out in D.C. Visiting my family, I was up. Every time I fly in, it's like, okay, meet me I meet my brother out. We go to happy hour. My cousins come out if they can come.
Sure.
My one cousin had his friends with him. I had never met these people before. Really cool people, but I didn't really talk to them until later in the night. You know, as the night goes on, we were talking to them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we both work at NASA." And you're like, "What?" Yeah. And like, they're young people. They're attractive. I made my judgments that they might have been doing something simple or communications, and all of a sudden you're talking to actual rocket scientists. Yeah. And they're downplaying it because they're humble. And it's like, "Well, what'd you get in your SATs?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't remember." I'm like, that's a lie.
You're lying. You remember.
And then
we all remember.
Her boyfriend says she's lying. She got like what was it like? It's out of 2,400 right now. She got like a 2,350. Right?
There you go. That's nice. Yeah.
Every Jackson, Colin might have got over 1,000. Nick and I, high nines.
Come on, you're kidding me.
You're not test takers. Regardless, we're all where we want to be in life. That just goes to show folks that it doesn't matter about the test or the school. It's about how you get there.
It doesn't matter. We put too much weight on it.
We do.
So I won't even bother telling you what I got on a 1,500.
But again, like if the writing portion was on there, the Jacksons definitely that would have come up because that gives our time to give us a little bit more of the zhuzh. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
That seemed like a real layup of a section, but everyone knows that what really matters is that you call your favorite podcast.
Yes.
And a second friend of the pod did do that, Gavin. Oh my gosh, what a lucky happenstance for us to double dip.
It's like the fourth being with us.
It is with us, dude. So we had that first dip. You can't have a double dip without the second dip.
Well, of course not. I don't like the double dip.
Actually, I gave you the second dip first, okay? Dessert before breakfast.
If you're driving, pull off the road now.
Yeah, you could probably hear that was a second dip. That was so good. Anyway, here's the first one. I'm doing it backwards, okay? I'm wacky.
Gavin AT, this is your good buddy CJ, currently calling you from my morning routine, which I've pretty easily added the lead to. Started waking up very early in the morning because as a parent of 3 kids, this is the only time I get to myself. I'm making some eggs for some avocado toast, but wanted to give Rena our best, especially our little baby Ellis. She said her best friend Rena, she loves her podcast, and she doesn't know what the lead would be without Rena. So yes, give her our best from the Cypress Clan. That's really about it. Hope you guys have a good one. And I will open this up to you guys to do whatever you want with the wind down. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you, CJ, for giving us that. Love to hear it. And of course, proud papa there, papa of 3.
Great new baby on his hands.
Great morning podcast routine, too. I do the same thing, BBC World News Report, Wall Street Journal,
so
Politico,
fastidious, these two.
Economist, The Intelligence. You just mash it all in, you mainline it, you feel like you're okay, ready to take the world. I'm not waking up as early as I used to. I'm more like the 5:30 routine now.
That's disgusting that's later for you.
I know. It used to be much earlier, but now it's okay. But I want to go back to what we were talking about with finals week because it jogged my PTSD. He gave us permission.
He gave us carte blanche. He forgot to sign the check.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. But it reminds me of like last semester, senior year. Is Gavin going to graduate?
Stop.
And here I am, like, writing out my GPA, crunching the numbers, banking that I'm going to get like a D in this class and 1 in this class. And one of the classes I decided to take my last semester was Latin American Affairs. But I just never tested well in that class. It never worked out for some reason. And of course, I actually got an F in astronomy my sophomore year. We've talked about this before.
I'm an A+ astronomy student. A+ astronomy
Which haunted my entire career. Instead of bailing and jumping the ship, I was like, I'm going to pull it out. Did not pull it out.
Shires love a telescope.
Blew up the GPA for the rest of the time. But I mean, I always said, well, my American domestic political in my journalism classes.
Look at the podcasts you listen to. Yeah. And look at the podcasts I listen to. The dumbest ones possible. Okay.
Again, kids, like, don't worry about it. You'll get through.
Yes.
Oh, this is we have to give them advice for the future. We'll save that for the next. Don't worry about the GPA.
Gavin,
or the SAT scores.
The next wind down is just going to be
Advice.
Gavin's commencement speech. Yeah, that he's giving to no one really.
You would not want me to give a commencement speech. I'd be too real.
I'd be
too real.
Yeah, you would.
We would have to do it.
Let's take this off. Can I get that chair that I'm going to sit backwards on out here? Yeah. I love that.
Ever seen Dangerous Minds? Yeah, I'm Michelle Pfeiffer in this situation.
It's uncanny how close it is, folks. It's scary being in the same room because you're like, it's Michelle.
No, we would have to give a commencement address together.
Well, I would just cut you off the whole time.
I know.
Yeah.
We'd engage the kids.
It would be funny that you would be billed. I would give 70% of the speech where you just say buzzwords that trigger
and then I
uncontrollable.
Fold my arms and give you a look like, come on, guys.
This guy, Gavin's
We
smoking
do
a cigarette
events.
outside. Oh, you need me to say another thing? Anyway, CJ, thank you for calling. Rena is 1. We don't need to talk about it anymore until she is 2. I'm not going to say months anymore. She's 1.
That's true.
That's nice and easy. I love all your
15
daughters.
months.
And you know what? Folks, we're letting you off early, okay?
Okay.
You don't have to come back for the rest of the class, okay?
Okay, you're free. You guys go ahead and get out of here. But you do have some homework to do. You have to call, like David and like CJ, 803-563-7169. Give us some of your horror stories from finals. We would love to hear that. Or, maybe you were the valedictorian. We would love to hear that too. Slow Victorian. Whatever you were, 803-563-7169. We love hearing from you guys. You can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And you can stay up to date with the latest news on scetv.org and southcarolinapublicradio.org. And don't forget to support your local newspapers. The South Carolina Lede is a production of South Carolina Public Radio. Our producer is A.T. Shire. Amy Crouch is our supervising producer. Sean Birch is our executive producer. This podcast is produced with support from PRX and is made possible in part by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, as well as listener contributions to the ETV Endowment of South Carolina. For the South Carolina Lede, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina. I know that the food scientists are definitely doing their job because I am craving it.
I don't like the sound of that. It hits your nose and you have the Pavlovian response of salivating.